Welcome to another edition of The Quad. This is our special May Day edition, celebrating the lives lost and the gains that we have achieved as a working class. May Day is May 1st, 2020. Also a day to go out and mobilize and take part in the General Strike 2020. Once again, we want to remind you to stay safe. See if there's any car protests happening in your neighborhood or locally, and go make your voices be heard. So, in today's session, I'd like to introduce to you today a representative from Who Are We movement, Gabriel. Say hello.
Aaron, I'm going to let you know right now, it's good to be on the show. I can only hear you just a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Okay.
You're like in and out for like half a second.
Yeah. Okay. So how's it now?
It's better.
Okay, better. All right. Cool. So let's see here. So I was just introducing you, Gabriel, and where you're from, Who Are We movement, and I was just going to let you kind of give an introduction into for yourself and for the movement here.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me on the show. I just wanted to say that people in St. Louis are, really trying to get together, and with the rest of the country, nationwide. The Who Are We movement is an organization that was started, just a month ago. We have really drummed up some support from, all over our city, our region, and even around the nation. And we're here to stay as far as we're concerned. It's an honor to, be talking to other people, around this country that are trying to make a difference and come together on these issues, these very important issues.
Correct. And I just wanted to send a heartfelt thanks once again for coming and kind of answering my call out there that I'm sending to network and get our message out there so that we can make people aware that, hey, you're not alone in your struggle, and there are thousands, if not millions, of other people who, want to achieve the same goals. So why not try to do that together?
Exactly.
Sorry about that. So first and foremost, I do want to go ahead and share the website here, whoarewemovement.org. And I did go ahead and check out the website. And if you're a progressive out there, they are fighting for basically every policy on Bernie's platform. Basically, no stone has been left unturned. I will add one thing to the cause here in just a second. But they have a lot of great resources, especially in regards to organizing in your workplace. And they even have separate categories for different industries, such as garment workers, transit workers, trucking workers, and food workers. There's a lot going on there. So if you're interested in organizing or need any tips on how to get started, please go and check out whoarewemovement.org. Okay, and also on the show today, I want to welcome back Brian Newton, our resident political consultant. Say hi, Brian. How you doing today?
Hi, good to be back.
Good to have you, man. Good to have you. Lots been going on. I've been trying to stay as busy as I can to keep up with everything, in our political sphere here. But once again, being an essential worker, full time, that kind of eats into what I'm doing here. And as I understand, Gabrielle, you're also considered an essential worker. Is that correct?
Yes, it is correct. I was not surprised when, all the stuff started coming out that grocery store workers specifically were going to be labeled as essential. I just thought it was going to be, a position that was going to be treated as essential, though, instead of just labeled as essential. And I'm not a big fan of the whole label of frontline worker, just because I do work in a grocery store. I don't necessarily consider myself that. And I also am not a big fan of the idea that we are heroes either. But yes, we are essential workers for sure.
I would argue everyday heroes, the unspoken heroes that has kept the American economy and civilization moving for hundreds of years now, So I don't want to
Well,
minimize that. Go ahead,
one
Ryan.
one argument towards her point is that the implication of like the war footing behind it, it's like we put everything into militaristic terms, which I've heard before, and I actually do agree with.
No, that I agree with, and I mean, honestly, Carlin had an excellent analysis of this. How we're always in a war. We have a war on drugs. We have firefighters. You have freedom fighters, and then you question what the true meaning of a freedom fighter is. But no, I totally do get that, and I agree. I agree. So just one thing of note as well, also just going back to the website, they did you the service, the good people at Who Are We movement, to add the number to the congressional switchboard, okay? So for those of you essential workers, quote unquote, and sorry guys, frontline workers, once they're back in session, we need to light up that switchboard and let them know that we don't agree with what they're doing. That number is area code 202-225-3121. Okay, once again, Congressional Switchboard 202-225-3121. And it's important that you burn that number into your brain like 911. This is your direct line to the Senate, and use your power. And like I said, when they're back in session, we light that switchboard up and tell them that you're opposed to this predatory legislation via the stimulus bill. And let's put pressure on them to take action in our interests as an uphill battle as we think, as we know that's going to be. So I definitely want to thank you guys for that. Alrighty, so just kind of moving ahead. One of the things that I kind of feel that we need to also address in kind of our working class struggles here, and this is not our topic today, but I'm not seeing a lot of this. And Brian, we've spoken about this before, and that was policing our police in our communities, so like community oversight teams or committees.
Yeah, community policing.
Correct. And we even discussed ideas as far as creating armories in which the police wouldn't have access to firearms until there was an actual, threat that warranted.
Right.
So just real quick, just a quick caveat, Gabriel, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's very strange that when a pandemic happens or some sort of crisis, and then the police just literally choose to stop harassing people, stop going into the certain communities and finding reasons to criminalize people. We all start to realize that certain things that were looked at as problematic or criminal, or something that somebody would be prosecuted over and thrown in jail for, really isn't that important after something as horrible as a pandemic comes through town. So it's very strange that that is a choice. And just like you were talking about with the armories, it's a choice to allow police officers to handle the weapons that they carry on a daily basis. It's a choice to pull that weapon. It's a choice to allow them to get away with it in a lot of situations where it's definitely unjust and there's no repercussions. So I think the armory idea is definitely something we should float for all communities. However, I've always been interested in making that trigger that they pull a little harder to pull, and going back to that whole 6-shooter business.
Geez, I mean, that, I get that, but I mean, being here in San Antonio, I do see a lot of Yosemite Sams walking around as there is. I don't know how much of a deterrent that will be. Walking around with a couple of 6-shooters on your hip.
Well, it would make them very selective about picking their shots, especially if they're in a real situation where they need to use their firearm.
This is true. We should get rid of any semi-automatics or automatics, period.
Yeah. Did you guys see that case where there's and it is out here in California where there was a young man who was killed by police in I think a Walmart or maybe a Target. Ironic, but he was
recent.
Yeah, it happened like maybe a week or two ago because it was during the pandemic because everyone had to wear a mask and this young man,
the persecution.
He was like swinging a bat and even wanted the police to show up to kill him, and of course, what do the police do? They tase him a couple of times, but then at some point they fire on him when he's walking away and after he's dropped the
when he was I saw that video footage. That was disgusting. Like, why?
It was just like I mean, if we're talking about limiting officers' use to carry in or use their firearms, but even still, the training, it's like they don't value our certain people's lives, and there's always a certain level of persecution and inequality when we're talking about like states use of force, but when they have access to just like pull out their gun, even like if the suspect has a bat or a knife, or someone has a bat or a knife, as opposed to just like, hey, not only can you call for backup, but you have armor, you have shielding, because I know they have riot shield. So I've seen in other countries, like in the UK, they literally will just bring out like a giant tarp and surround somebody if they're wielding a knife. Four officers can't do that here. Or even like a couple officers could do that here. Even if they needed civilian help, it'd still be possible. I mean, this person was not a danger to anyone immediately, and if anything, they were only a danger to themselves. And of course, the police, he proved them right by these officers like murdering him in the middle of a Target. And even still, people called.
He was retreating, by the way.
Yeah, well, and he dropped the bat, and he was clearly like disturbed. But like the solution to our people who have certain mental instabilities or just having an off day isn't to gun them down in the middle of the store, because like people did call the police on this individual. The reaction you can hear in the crowd when they saw this young man being murdered right in front of them, they weren't like, oh good, I'm glad this guy was put out of our misery. No, they were like, why'd you do that? Why'd you have to kill him? So the trauma isn't just based on, I mean, the victims definitely from police abuse and police violence, but also from the community and civilians at large. They don't want to see that. Nobody wants to see that.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, loss of life is always that's something that never gets burned out of your head. I've seen a couple, and I'm just talking about just instances of people dying on either one live TV or right in front of me. You know, seeing like a homeless guy walk into the neighborhood train that I was on.
Oh my God!
And that, yeah. So yeah, nobody wants to see that.
Yeah.
And that needs to be addressed. That's an elephant in the room that's I think is always just sort of, well, not sort of, is always ignored.
Yeah, the trauma that we suffer daily in this country is does not get enough attention, I would say.
I agree. It's a tragedy. So just real quick, not to get off of topic for today. Going back to labor and the significance of May Day. So I just to let you know, and I I have the first two scripts for our history of U.S. labor struggles written out already, and I got to the point. I kind of stopped at Pinkerton, Brian, and you were mentioning that, and we see
That's
the
a big one.
massacres, and we see this one case in which I have to Google here. Let me get the actual name here, but the specific instance in which which is cited to be the catalyst for the achievements we made as a labor movement was during a labor strike. For there's a strike going on for 3 days. The city escapes me. I'm looking that up right now on my phone, but if it comes up, just go ahead and interject.
It was Chicago.
Yeah, in Chicago.
Haymarket.
Yes, Haymarket. That's what. Thank you. That was escaping me. Yeah. So there's a 3-day protest, labor protest, peaceful protest happening in Haymarket in Chicago, and in which the police were sent, to neutralize the disturbance. I'll say this resulted in people getting beat, people being shot to death, and the catalyzing event, I'll say, was some mysterious individual threw a stick of dynamite into the into the crowd, and I think like 4 officers were killed, and they directly blamed the protesters who led the protest for the officer's death. It was ultimately, decided in the courts that it couldn't be proven who the stick of dynamite was tied to.
Yeah, let's just say there are such things as agent provocateurs.
Oh, we see that all the time in plants all the time. I mean, just look at Trump's COVID press briefings, and I say that very loosely. You can always tell his plant, usually a blonde, 20 to 30 something year old woman, and just asking some very directed questions, I'll say. So, and even bringing that, circling back to modern day, there's talk of the liberation protests happening now being staged by corporate interests. So I think that's important to bring up too.
All right. Hey, so it is very interesting that we kind of are going full circle back to that. If you start a protest that ends up being a riot, no matter if, the police are kind of being aggressive and, starting, to make people act in a way that would be considered a riot in their terms, then the organizer of the protest would then be prosecuted for rioting. And this has happened with Native American communities as well in recent years. And they've been criminalizing people who have decided to stand up for themselves and protest, for generations now. So, yeah, I think the May Day Haymarket riot was, boiled down to a very similar equation that they have decided to stick with over, years and years and years, all going back to like feudalism and, even past that. So yeah, it's strange that we still consider somebody who organizes the right to speak up and, talk about the things that they're passionate about and care about and want to see change in this, in this world. They're criminalized just based on that.
True. It is one thing that we love to cite the First Amendment, right? But nobody ever said there would be no consequences of practicing that right, unfortunately.
Right.
That's one point that never ever comes up. But kind of piggybacking off of that, Gabrielle, I'm sorry. It's 2 different ways to pronounce that, and I always struggle with that name. So just piggybacking off of that, yeah, I'm just going back into the history too. 1677, 12 Carmen, and 1636. Those are some of the first two recorded in colonial protests, and both instances ended up the same way. And they were the charges were seriously just striking. That was the charge. You were striking. So here's your citation. Here's time behind bars. So,
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, this isn't anything new, and that's what I'm trying to hammer into people's heads. That none of their tactics are new. They've been using them for hundreds of years now. We should be able to recognize that and be able to move past it. So, just real quick, if you can you give us a little more information on who we are movement, and I also want to get into curbside concierge. That's something that you mentioned in our communications here.
Definitely. So the Who Are We movement is, a labor movement, or is joining the labor movement, I should say. We thought we were going to be original when we, got together for the first time. We thought it was going to blow up, become viral, all that kind of stuff. But it actually turned out that the entire internet and the entire labor force decided to blow up all at the same time. Everybody went home. Everybody started, getting on their social media and their videos and the news. And, people started talking immediately, organizing. And so we were not the first, we were not the only, but we are one of them. And we are here to stay and try to protect people's lives. It all started with safety in our workplace. Mm-hmm. And it's funny you mentioned Bernie Sanders earlier, because that was right at the end of the, Super Tuesdays and all that, part of the primary, when it didn't look so great for him. But then, all this information started coming out about how that was a, whole rocky path, and potential corruption within the Democratic Party. And talk about that at another time. But we were really... And I was personally inspired by his campaign and the way he spoke about how we're going to have to stand up, and we're going to have to make change. We're going to have to take on the big industries in this country in order to make that change. And so he had an amazing pandemic response plan in place. And as soon as I saw that, it lit me up, and I was ready to fight for those things. Since then, we have kind of moved away from his platform just to make our own, our own demands and our own voice be heard. And we're talking to other groups that have, very similar, but also different ways of going about what their demands would be. Yeah, we deserve protections in our workplace. We deserve protections for our jobs specifically. So, need to be given the proper health care. We shouldn't be waiting on testing. We shouldn't be having to pay for testing. We shouldn't have to be having to be paying for treatment, especially for COVID-19, especially if we get it in our and then, there's definitely all these repercussions if you don't work, if you don't get paid. If you're an essential worker and you're on leave because you're an at-risk individual, you're not getting paid.
Yeah.
And if you go to work, then you're even more at risk, and you're putting other essential workers, the actual, those frontline employees that are, workers that are medical personnel, all the nurses, they are at risk when you put yourself at risk. And if we overwhelm our medical industry, we are all screwed. And that is, putting it lightly. And so this is why we were starting to get very serious about, okay, well, we need people who are at risk to go home. Mm-hmm. We need people who are at home to get paid. And we also need to downsize, not increase the amount of people working in those essential industries, and start to look at what people actually need. Get them the resources they need. Nobody mentioned anything about rationing. Nobody mentioned anything about slowing down and making sure that the government had the National Guard come in to assist the medical industry, assist the food production and the distribution. There was no help from our government at any point during this in so many ways. Very, very, very few industries have seen relief. And when this last big stimulus passed, essential workers were completely left out of the conversation. And it was just unbelievable how they decided that people who were not working were going to be paid sometimes more than the people who were labeled as essential. So that is basically what we're fighting for. We're fighting for hazard pay. We're fighting for a PPE. We're fighting for a livable wage plus that hazard pay, which is at $15 an hour. And we're also fighting for the people who are going to be hired soon. And on top of that, yes, we did add the curbside concierge service because that kind of goes along the lines of the Who Are We movement, wanting to keep people safe, especially the essential workers, because that keeps the public safe. It's time that we step up, and it's time that we organize, and future organization will appear like what we're talking about for May Day. It's going to be workers across all industries coming together under one banner to fight for the rights that they deserve. They've deserved them for years, and now they deserve them more than ever. We are the most powerful force in this country right now. So that is basically our structure as the Who Are We movement.
And always have been the most powerful force. We've just always been told you're dogs, you know?
Correct.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, the U.S. has never, at least in my lifetime, I've never seen them, I've never seen a successful response to a domestic crisis or disaster. Hurricane Katrina, I mean, you name them. Like, we could get bombs and heavy tanks and planes and ships across, oceans, but we can't get water to states here. That's another, that's another episode, but yeah, it's really dismaying, when you realize. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. It ties into all of it. It's I'm reading about World War II and how the bomb industries or the weapons industries and everything like that right before that were blocked from profiteering off of war. So it goes along with what you're saying about that. We can't take disasters and try to figure out how to profit as much as we can and keep our capitalist system in place. So.
Yeah. Like, I think it's time we try something new. The systems has failed multiple times over. And yeah, it's proven itself by now. It's proven itself. So, yeah, were you going to say something?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because today I was talking with a friend and, of course, had the awful thought of, like, what comes after this. And if we don't mobilize, if we don't organize to protect ourselves, not just as workers, but as, human beings and citizens, the corporations are just going to come and just rake up everything that's left. Like, they're already talking about getting rid of the U.S. Postal Service. What could possibly replace it after this? Well, I imagine UPS or other like corporatist, privatized, capitalistic delivery services, which now used to have your mail delivered. It was a part of our system of government and communication. But now it's like, oh, that's not a. Now you have to pay that extra $5 a charge just to get like your send your grandkids their birthday cards and things of that nature. So people do not understand how when we lose our the ones we have, what few remaining quote unquote privileges we have, when we lose these things, it's only creating a vacuum for other I would say powerful corporate interests to come in and like take control of those brain fart, take control of those systems that were no longer in place, because like that need is there. The need to eat, the need to have food, the need to communicate is there. So if we don't have something in place where people are protected from that, from corporate gouging, then they're just going to run roughshod, as we've seen over and over and over and over again.
Correct. And I think it's funny that you say that. We're speaking of the void here that corporations, quote unquote, need to fill, right? Business 101 in college. The one of the first mantras they teach you is that in order to find a value in your service or good, you must create a problem first, and then your product or your service is then the solution to that problem. So I would even argue as far as to say that these corporations are even manipulating our economics in this way, you know. I don't think it's necessarily dependent on, the crashes and recessions. But I
No,
mean, one could argue that,
they'll find any opportunity.
yeah, I mean, but one could argue that like the 2008 one was clearly just that's just misuse of that system, period.
So
Okay. So really quick, circling back to Gabriel and curbside concierge. So for those of you who may not understand what that means, some of the some of the big box retailers out there have resorted to curbside pickup and the like. There are a handful that I know of personally that have completely restricted store access to the public. You're allowed to go to the vestibule to pay for theft or a high price item, or they'll walk it out and you can pay by swiping your card there. Best Buy, Kohl's, Dick's Sporting Goods, and if you're interested in supporting any of those operations who are still, and I hate to spin it this way, but who are still financially supporting their employees, but taking the great measures they are in keeping them safe, check them out. USA Today has a great article. 21 big box retailers who have adopted a curbside service, so check them out. Okay. But it's a great service, and it keeps the employees safe. If we have to be forced to be out there on the floor and keeping this profit motive going for whatever reason, let's try to do it responsibly and support those who are actually trying to do the best thing for us. Okay. Let's see. So what else do you have going on, Gabriel?
So, well, the curbside concierge service basically breaks down to two things. It breaks down to ending profiteering by these companies that are doing really, really well right now, such as, Amazon, Target, Walmart, Whole Foods.
Mm-hmm.
But also, the union grocery stores like Kroger. Here in St. Louis, we have Schnucks and Deerbergs. So that it comes down to the profit aspect of it, but it also comes down to safety. And one of the things that has been spoken a few times now is when in your city, in your local area, it seems like this virus isn't really a problem. It seems like the pandemic isn't really a big deal. It seems like everything's calm and very manageable. That means you're doing things right. And that means that we're saving lives, and we're not creating any bigger of a crisis than we need to be allowing to run rampant in our cities. And when you're doing things right, you're not noticing the chaotic, qualities of this pandemic. So one thing that we're wanting to introduce in St. Louis specifically, utilize it as a staging city for this curbside concierge service, is definitely, keeping the general public out of the stores. We were talking about for the show, but, when it comes down to it, this is an airborne virus. And when you put people into a store, you are asking for more people to get sick. And that is exactly how this virus has continued to spread. It's from people who don't believe that they need to wear masks. It's from people who don't believe that this is a problem at all. Some of those people are being extremely rude to the employees. should be regarded as essential and as people who are putting their lives at risk. And these companies are doing very, very little to truly protect them. And the problem with that is, it does motivate that company to utilize its power to continue making money off of this situation and put employees at risk and putting their employees behind, the importance of them staying in business. One of the big problems with a lot of those grocery stores is they make money based on selling their shelf space to large food makers like Coca-Cola, Nabisco, just to name a few. Obviously, Pepsi, PepsiCo, Campbell's, doesn't really matter. Any of those big companies, they pay huge sums of money to get their products on these shelves. And when you pull out of the store, those companies are going to have massive holes in their profit margins. And then what they do in reaction to any sort of proposal like that is they say, well, we're going to fire all our employees, even if they're union, even if they're most of the union grocery stores are doing that, is saying, well, we're going to fire all the union employees that you guys have found positions for over the years. We're going to threaten their jobs. And what's funny is the union presidents and the union leaders have been real buddy with these employers in order to keep their positions and keep things the way that they are instead of being flexible to change them. And curbside concierge service is one of those more extreme ways of changing the system and cutting out that idea of, we need to make profit. But it truly will save lives in the long run, and it truly will make the employees feel like they're being taken care of. It shouldn't be down to the employers at this point. It should be something that is installed as soon as possible.
And I'm going to say, hey guys, pamper yourself a little. The service isn't that bad. You don't have to go into the store and deal with a crowd of people. You get to chill in your air-conditioned vehicle if you have air conditioning. Listen to the radio and wait for someone to bring your product out to you. I mean, how hard is that? It's the easiest thing to do. It's no different than waiting for your fast food, at McDonald's. So push for that. It's definitely a more comfortable shopping experience. And like I said, I'm going to spin it this way. Pamper yourself, enjoy a little service. Feel like a king or queen for about 10 minutes or so.
Exactly.
Enjoy the apocalypse in style.
There you go.
Jesus.
Hey, if you're going to go ahead, Gabriel.
I was going to say, what's funny, though, is a union leader for the UFCW has specifically told me that if they go that route, they're afraid that customers won't go back into the stores, and they're going to just want the service from here on out.
Yeah.
And what I told them was that if Amazon and Whole Foods is basically hiring hundreds of thousands of employees to make services like that, or you talk about Instacart and all these other Postmates and all that kind of stuff, like, this economy is changing. The way we do business is changing. If you just keep, having these giant grocery stores where people, bumble around in order to run into your displays of packaged cookies, you're going to lose out either way. So instead of firing the union workforce you have in place or anything like that, more than likely you're going to need more employees, and you're going to do just as many sales, if not maybe even generate more profit based on the way you actually run your business. So yeah, I think it's funny that is one of the fears instead of just embracing the change and being flexible.
Yeah, you're right, because like the nature of our economy was shifting that way anyway. Like, look at the destruction of the mall.
Automation.
Automation, another thing, and like the not just the fear of think about it, like, this will psychologically affect people for generations, if not our generation, the generation after us, where you had people who grew up during the Great Depression who still stuffed all their money under a mattress, which might not be a bad idea right now, but the implications of like how we live based on like crisis and certain economic situations we've been going through will affect us going all the way up until probably our passing is very interesting. That like some people may never step foot in a credit store or event again.
Yeah, but so yeah, this speaks kind of to trauma, right? So, have you ever known people? Well, have you ever been to someone's house and they were just hoarding, food hoarders? If
Now
you
I'm feeling called out.
no, well,
I'm
don't.
not a
But
food
I
hoarder.
say this for a reason because I've been in this position myself where I find myself after the fact kind of over purchasing. When you're put into a position where like you can't eat or you're begging for food or you're trying to stretch out $20 for a whole week, and that's damn near impossible here in America. You kind of get to the point where you're like, I'm never going to get to the point where my cabinet is empty ever again, just in case something down the line happens. I don't care how expired my noodles are. I'm going to make sure they're in there, and I'm going to keep adding
I,
to it.
I definitely feel like that was a thing more from our parents' generation growing up. It was always like a well-stocked cabinet was a sign of like, and like they grew up during the '50s, so they also had like advertising, that consumer advertising that catered to that idea. That's what it meant to live in that like picket fence, nuclear family American household. That you also should have a well-stocked cabinet because they're also operating under the Cold War fears and propaganda. Like at any point the nukes could fall, so you better have your bunker.
Okay, well, I'll speak for myself in that regard. But yeah, I was just saying, just kind of the trauma of being in that situation. You kind of condition yourself to you start deliberately making actions to prevent something like that from happening again, even though you really can't.
Yeah,
So it's sort of
there's, but there's
self-defeating.
well, there should be a level of preparedness, but I would say the larger thing is to make sure that our systems that also take care of people should be in place. Because I don't want fallout. I don't want fallout to happen. Not nuclear fallout, but the video game.
No, this is true, and I don't know. Our corporate oligarchs seem to be intent on sending us into the Mad Max fiction, or bringing that to reality. Yeah, it's crazy stuff, dude. It's crazy stuff.
Do you mind if I kind of jump off of something?
No, go
Hmm.
ahead. Absolutely.
Yeah, please.
Something that's just been rattling around in my head, and it's only being proven as we speak. I have small businesses here in St. Louis. I'm going to give a little shout out to Local Harvest. It's a very small grocery store in the city.
Holla.
And it has been doing curbside service for pretty much this entire time and been successful at it. They are, doing more business than they ever have before and all that kind of stuff. And they get good portion of, I'm talking a lot of local food to actually stock their shelves. They do have international and national suppliers, but for the most part, they do supply locally. And when it comes to this time of year in St. Louis, we have amazing farmers market programs who join in on. And the reality of what we're going through right now is the fact that we are relying on this massive corporate food structure that is not sustainable. It basically creates economic slavery. We treat the immigrant workers like garbage. They're not getting any relief. And so the Who Are We movement actually stands for all essential workers, including those people, to stick up for them and make sure that they get what they deserve. We want to hear their voices because they are going unheard right now. The workers in meat production plants, all these meat packing plants, they are getting sick in massive numbers right now. And now Trump is actually stepping in. Our president is stepping in to
Yeah, I
make sure
saw
that
that.
they go. anywhere. They are being held hostage. We should not feel like hostages in our workplaces. We should feel like, the workers that we're told we are, and yeah, we should have rights. We should have representation. We should have protection for our jobs. But the large food system is not sustainable, and if we don't start embracing higher production of local food, this is going to keep happening and happening and happening.
Yeah, like you mentioned farmers markets. So I'm like, oh yeah, I completely forgot. No one can do a farmers market right now.
No one can do a farmer's market right now, but those farmers are still growing food. They
Definitely.
do exist in your local communities, and they need to be supported more than anybody right now, because if they go down, we all go down. We all starve.
Quick question: do you happen to know like of an online network to get in touch with those farmers? So like, if you happen to live near somebody who has like access to food or produce, you can like literally drive up and like pick up what they got, so you don't have to rely on vendors.
So I would say the best way to find that information, no matter what city you're in, I would go to your locally supplied grocery stores, and they often have CSA or programs and all that kind of stuff. If you do have a farmer's market that runs in your area, all of those vendors still talk, and those vendors are the farmers. They are part of an organization more than likely that is already in place, and they have a network already set up, ready to go, and that's how the farmers market in my area is actually currently working. So it's impressive.
Perfect. And to add to that, even in California as well. Now, I'm not sure what position the rest of the states are in the union, but for those of you who can and do participate in the WIC program, I just anecdotal evidence here. I can speak for myself to the fact that if you visit some of these WIC locations, the dedicated grocers, they will oftentimes give you vouchers for these farmers markets. They usually have like block events and things like that, or they'll run out a lot for the weekend. Your local WIC store will often hand these out seasonally, so especially throughout the summer and throughout the spring. And they usually I think give you about 5 different books of vouchers. If you don't use them, then they start cutting you off. But if you use them, you have access to all that organic, locally grown produce and other goods that they make as well. So I think is imperative that in order for the working class to rebuild itself and edify and take back its power and to challenge the corporate big box retailers, we need to support these guys. They are doing what they can to support us, especially our low income families. So please pay it forward and definitely take advantage of these farmers markets, okay? And I'll start preaching about that. Okay, so let's see. I think we've covered for the most part everything, all the vital information for today. Once again, May Day, a very important day. You usually hear the phrase like, people died for your 8-hour day. This is true. I'm going to invite everyone to the Patreon page as well as YouTube and SoundCloud. As I'm going to be starting a series this week on the history of the U.S. labor union struggle, okay? And so a lot of what we covered today, once again, I'm going to say is not new. It goes, our struggle, the same struggle, as a matter of fact, go back hundreds of years. And a lot of what we covered today is going to be covered in a little more detail in that series. So once again, Gabrielle, talking to you before the show, I did mention, and I won't hold you guys too much longer here, but I did mention that I was having a problem in finding any protest locations here in San Antonio. Once you reach page 3 on the Google search, you're probably not going to find it. So I was just wondering for those in your area, either Gabriel or Brian, do you have any resources or anywhere that you can point any of our listeners to who want to become active in this protest?
Brian, you want to take this one first?
Sure. Like, I've only been involved with some of the stuff involving DSA, which I know often participates in May Day locally. I think we're doing a thing. It's got to be all car protests right now, or car actions right now, but there might be one happening in downtown LA for May Day. I'll have to double check with that, but it's Los Angeles. Just look up DSA LA. There's postings about it.
Okay, so I will say for the Big Red listeners, I did look up DSA event calendars for both San Antonio and Austin. Unfortunately, there are no events listed for May Day. So I'm going to as well, but I implore that you guys reach out to these guys and even join these organizations, guys. These are working class organizations who are fighting for the protections and the quality of life that we need. So reach out to them and try to speak with them and see how we can organize as a people, okay? So, Gabriel, I give the floor to you.
I have many shout outs to make to the organizers in Jackson, Mississippi, as well as around the entire country. So what our organization at the Who Are We movement has been very active in doing, probably the best thing that we can do at this point is we're putting pressure on those larger organizations that have been in place, such as DSA and a lot of the mostly the big unions. They're not all talking to each other. Some of them are in than others, and a lot of them are not planning on taking any actions, which is actually kind of sad because they're the ones that should be protecting their employees the most. And so I would like to see them get together more and start talking.
That's my goal here.
About some much bigger actions. So we're putting pressure on a lot of those union organizations as much as we can, and we encourage everyone else to do that as well. If you know of a union member and they seem happy and complacent, put pressure on them to talk to their union leaders and get them mobilized, because we don't have an option going forward. But as far as the grassroots is concerned, currently we are talking to Cooperation Jackson, very awesome organization down in Jackson, Mississippi. They are strong. They have numbers. They are organizing rent strikes for the most part, but yes, they are definitely celebrating May Day alongside General Strike 2020. That is a very big organization as well. Those guys are probably leading the coalition building more than anything at the grassroots, which is awesome. And then coronastrike.us. That's a really big hub of information as well. So if anybody wants to get involved with the Who Are We movement or any of those groups, I highly, highly suggest it. You don't need to go out and mass protests. We are not encouraging that as these grassroots organizations. And I think that's why a lot of the bigger organizations are scared right now to push for strikes. We are not doing that. If you know of a way to collect and do it safely, such as car protests, such as, coming together apart, so standing 6 feet apart, spreading out small groups, and get on those public pieces of property in front of these businesses or in parks or in front of government buildings. You can still collect, just do it safely, But the biggest thing that we're encouraging for May Day is to call out sick, take the day off, take leave starting on the 1st if you can. If you can't and you have to work, I would highly encourage you to wish everybody a happy May Day. And if they don't know what that is, you let them know that a day in 1886. The labor movement in this country changed everything going. And this is a holiday for workers, and it's not been recognized in this country pretty much ever. So do what you can to get out of work. If you are in a powerful situation, whether you're at Target, Walmart, any company, doesn't matter. If you feel like your workforce is collected and powerful, and you and your coworkers would like to stand up to your boss or your management and say, hey, this is our holiday and we're taking the day off to either go home to our families, take to social media, call your congressperson, call your your senator, that day off, stay at home and talk to the people in your lives and in your communities. You don't have to go out on the street, just stay home. Don't shop. Encourage everybody else to boycott any sort of consumer culture that is not what day is about, So that is what we're encouraging at this point. Take to social media as much as you can to get the word out. This is only the beginning. This is the opening scene, So if you don't have a lot of activity in your locality, make it happen as best as you can, and then start tracking this labor movement going forward.
Correct. And speaking on a safe means of protest, so I sent a call out yesterday on Twitter to start what I call the Yellow Vest Challenge. And what I'm asking is that those of us who are so-called essential workers out there on the retail floor or fast food service or what have you, the liquor store, whatever self-imposed essentiality a business has claimed for you. I'll put it that way. Go out, buy a yellow vest, because we can't go out collectively. It's just not safe to do it right now. We want to do the smart thing. Go out, buy a yellow vest, wear it proudly at work. It is a nonviolent form of protest. It does not go against any dress codes, or SOP, workplace SOP, as is not direct soliciting. There's no, you could write something on there if you want, but there's no direct solicitation on the vest. But it does signify, just like our yellow ribbons did for our Vietnam vets and our Korean War vets, that you are not okay with things right now, and you are demanding better pay, better worker protections, everything that Gabriel here has spoken on today. And this is kind of our way of giving them a visual indication of, hey, this uprising is starting. And I would love to just see, if I have to go into a Walmart or somewhere, just a bunch of yellow vests walking around while they're working. Because I think that sends a very powerful statement. And once we have a vaccine, once it's safe to go out into the streets again, we take those same yellow vests and we get on the roads with our signs. Okay. So I'm sending a call out to that. Please participate and let's spread this message of solidarity. And Brian, did you have anything before we took off today, sir?
No, that's pretty much it. I also want to clarify that the DSA is doing a, I just looked it up.
Nice.
It's a digital hangout for May Day as well at 7 p.m. So anyone's free to sign up for that. You just have to RSVP.
Oh man, I would have to call out to work for that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm already using the day for May Day, so.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. Well, I think what I'm going to do, though, is on May Day, I might kind of drive around the city a bit with my camcorder and just see if I can find any collectives anywhere or any sort of combination of people. And I'll try to capture that and be a part of that. But other than that, if you have the means to mobilize and, like I say, in a safe fashion, please do it. It's your weapon. It is your tool. It is your right as an American citizen or just a human in this country. If you're walking on this land, that is your right. Use it. Use it. I think, yeah, we'll go ahead and end it here. Is there anything that I may have missed, Gabriel, just before I let you go here?
No, I just want to make sure everybody understands that if you're an essential worker or a worker in general, you are already part of the Who Are We movement. That's what it's all about. Who are we to change the world? Who are we to stick up for ourselves? We are not necessarily just going after employers. We are really trying to pressure the federal government, and it's up to all of us to start to make that change, because we got to change this country and this world for the better going forward. So it's going to be up to us to start that, and it's going to be a very interesting rest of the year. So thank you so much for having me and letting me represent our movement.
No, absolutely. I thank you wholeheartedly once again for coming on, and just thank you for kind of heeding my call to reach out. Because yeah, if we can't get ideas out of the living room, and our unions stay fractured and our people stay fractured, they win. The terrorists win, right?
Correct.
So yeah, thank you once again, Gabriel of Who Are We movement, and Brian Newton, our resident political consultant here at the People Class. Once again, I'd like to apologize for any technical difficulties that you may have experienced with the podcast and the quality. I will work to get that corrected ASAP. So once again, I just want to invite you to get active, organize, and let's start doing the work of rebuilding and edifying the working class with some dignity. And this includes citizens, non-citizens, those who are able-bodied and not, and those who are currently working or not. You matter, and you should be a part. Okay, nobody should be excluded from a prosperous life here in America. So, with that, I'm going to go ahead and bid you all adieu, and dismiss this session. Thank you for tuning in to another session of the People Class Podcast, the official podcast of the People Class. I hope you found the information shared in today's session enlightening, or at the very least, raise some questions. I extend an invitation to join us for more weekly sessions. And remember, our work does not stop here. Get active, organize, and take control over your destiny as an American working class person. Class dismissed.